some chunk of my introduction. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I think that gives us more time for Q&A at the end, so that will be nice. So a very warm welcome to our panel today and our lovely audience. Thank you for spending your time with us, and hopefully we'll make it worth your while. Um, as the gentleman said, my name is Kadekar, and I lead the strategic clients and both from a customer success and growth perspective at upGrad for Business. And I also have with me my partner in crime, Dolphy, who is the director for strategic sales at upGrad for Business. Now, what's really interesting is that we have a panel of business leaders talking about upskilling, right? And that's what makes this panel really special. Um, Now, the reason I want to highlight the term business leaders is upgrade for business, right? And learning companies like us, you would assume that we work with L&D teams and HR organizations, right, within the company. But that's what's changing right now, right? Because of the way the skills are shaping the way we are making career choices. There is a very strong influence of business in making skilling decisions for the organization, right? And that's sort of our our motive and the hypothesis that we are going to talk about for today. Now, before we get into the questions with the panel, I wanted to set some context, right? So, based on estimates from the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, globally, average life expectancy at birth is expected to rise from 72.6 years in 2019 to 77 years in 2015. Now, what does this mean? It means that we are going to live a much longer life than our previous generation, right? It also means that we are going to have much longer careers than our previous generation. So, if our previous generation worked for about 30 to 40 years, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, we are probably going to have a career and a professional lifespan of 50 to 60 years, right? And while our previous generation pretty much, was in the same organization, same role for a very long time, most people in this room want a new challenge, right? Or a new project every 3 to 5 years, right? So with new projects and new challenges every 3 to 5 years and a lifespan and a professional lifespan of 50 to 60 years, we are easily going to have upwards of 5 to 6 careers in our professional life. Now, what does that personally mean for us? It means that we have to unlearn, relearn, upskill, reskill ourselves, not to make sure that our organizations are profitable or they reach their goals, but simply for our own sake, right? So that personally becomes a huge, motive for each one of us, and why skilling is important, right? The second thing is that if we look at the analytics industry, right, and we've been hearing to so many talks since yesterday about how in the last 3 years since the pandemic, the whole landscape has changed, right? The kind of skills that we've had to learn, they have changed, right? Now, 89% employees cite lack of skills as biggest impediment to data transformation, and 82% employees would quit over a lack of career progression, right? So those are some huge statistics, right? And given the impact that the need for skilling is going to have on our personal lives, and in turn the organizations, makes it imperative for business leaders to be a part of the skilling conversation, right? And that's why we have these lovely gentlemen here today to talk about, as business leaders, what are the kind of decisions they have made, projects that they have undertaken, and what outcomes have they been able to deliver through these skilling initiatives, right? So that brings me to the topic of today, which is null or alternative hypothesis, right? Does employee upskilling play a key role as a business driver, right, for business sustenance and growth? Now, my first question to the panel is, in each of your experiences, where do you stand on this hypothesis? For business leaders like you, do you think the answer to this question would vary if it was put forward a few years ago? So, Tarun, can I look at you to go first?
Am I audible? So I think, just not sure about you, Ketaki, but I'm looking to retire at 50. Okay, so
you should tell me what worked for you in that case.
Yeah, so I think definitely, right, there's no question about it, right? I would like to, it's a null or alternate hypothesis, and people, with statistics background in the crowd will appreciate, right? Definitely would like to reject, right, this null hypothesis, right? There is definitely, upskilling has a very deep-rooted linkage to business performance, and especially in the analytics and the AI world. And if you and the second part of the question, right, which you said, if you were to ask this question a few years back, I would still say I would reject it, but the significance, and if to put a statistics hat on, the statistical significance has even improved over years, right? Upskilling is becoming more and more important as the way talent, is becoming at the center of any AI and analytics operations. So
All right. Deepesh, would you like to go next?
Sure, thanks, Ketaki. So essentially, I feel that as you all would agree, perhaps as well, employee upskilling is critical to business growth. The world of analytics is changing fast. We know that data is changing from structured to unstructured. Tools are changing from XLS, PSS to R, Python, and now cloud platforms. Algorithms are changing from statistical analysis to ML, AI algorithms. Platforms are changing, and so on. So world is changing very, very fast. Another example is, for example, today you can't just be a data scientist or a data engineer or a data quality guy. You need to have upskilled across all these different areas, and those will be the stars of the future. So with all of that happening, there is no choice for businesses but to focus on employee upskilling, or they lose their competitive advantage, especially in the world of consulting. If because we are not just solving the problems of today, but we are also anticipating the problems of future. So that's one part, and I think the second part is how this the new generation is treating employee upskilling. So it's not just they're ready to forego a lot of benefits, including salaries, if the environment is conducive for the intellectual growth and simulation. So and then the last part is with COVID, what's happening is this attritions are touching sky high rates. So in that environment, if businesses don't focus on employee upskilling, they are basically not going to be able to sustain. So absolutely agree with the hypothesis.
Fantastic. And I love that business perspective of having a competitive edge, right? Having the right talent. Thank you, Deepesh. Saket, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so absolutely. Upskilling, is it linked to growth for an organization? I believe there's no second thought about it. However, meaningful upskilling which is orchestrated well in the organization is critical. If you don't link your upskilling efforts with the organization's strategic intents, then it can be counterproductive as well, right? And there can be many cases where upskilling can lead to uh, some of the negative impacts in your business. So some examples will be that if your entire upskilling effort is not directed in supporting your organization growth strategy, your product strategy, your service strategy, and there are the silos effort in your organization in the upskilling, learning and development not connected to business, then certainly it will be counterproductive. You will build skills in the organization which are not getting utilized. Another case around negative impact on upskilling could be that if it is not directed well to the right audience, right? If you don't have an upskilling initiatives which addresses this segment of your employees, right? If you have an approach of one size fits all kind of an L&D initiative in your organization, it can be counterproductive. It will lead to loss of time, loss of investments. More on top of your training investments, the productive time loss, right? So I would say there's no second thought about continuous learning and building an organization which is continuously learning. However, the business goals, outcomes, all of that needs to get synchronized, come together, and the L&D organization needs to work hand in hand with the business organization, the planning organization, the portfolio teams, the sales teams, and also consider the external market influencer in terms of what are the skills for future, not just current. what are the skills which are going to be impactful in future, 1 year, 2 year down the line. If all of this comes together, then the hypothesis stands corrected. Otherwise, it can be counterproductive as well.
Yeah. So thank you, Saket, and I think it's a great way to start the panel discussion. I think am I audible? Sorry. Mic. Yeah.
Oh, he does have a mic.
No. Okay. Sorry. So am I audible now? Yeah. Thank you. So great way to start the panel discussion. This is my first Cypher, and I am delighted by the sort of response that we see. It's an opportunity to really understand what we talk to our clients, get a first-hand experience, meeting up with business leaders, and understand how they are really trying to really scale their practices, really scale their talent as we go along. So, one of the things that Saket spoke about is really looking at aligning to business. And one of the aspects of this that is really how do you drive business outcomes, right? One of the areas that when we have been working with clients, I'll give you some examples of the outcomes that we have driven. A manufacturing and retail company, I can take the name because this company, I will tell you in a short while why you can do that, really was looking at a opportunity to, bring about a change in the way the organization was looking at data analytics, right? Establish data as a common vocabulary within the organization, really move from a manual reporting structure to a dashboard-based structure, right? So they worked with us, the learning pathway that we set up for them, ensure that we were able to move almost about, 800 odd Excel sheet into a 500 plus dashboard, right? And creating a 50 million odd dashboard for the company. Great outcome, right? But this was also recognized by Brandon Hall Awards. They won a couple of golds, in fact, for this company in the year 2021. And for those who don't know about Brandon Hall, it's the equivalent of Oscars for the learning and development community, right? Circle back, the second one that we spoke about, when we talk about is science technology, right? Another great example of how they really leveraged, a program to really build the capabilities of digital skills among their sales team. The objective was very simple. How do we build a digital pipeline for the sales community, right? We devised a learning pathway for this client. At the end of the day, the learning outcomes, the learning pathway that the sales folks took underway, right? It resulted in almost about a 60% increase in the digital pipeline, right? Now, these are great examples, and we can probably speak of more, but this is not about us today, and gentlemen, this is also about you guys. So, Saket, coming back to your own examples, can you, in your stint with HP, right, and can you give us a few examples of how this has been driven, and more importantly, how do you really look at measuring outcomes from your learning pathways?
Yeah, sure. So I work in delivery organization, so I can bring a point of view more from the delivery teams. How do they look at outcomes of investments in learning and development, right? So there are two ways to measure outcomes. One is the business outcome, and second is the people side of it, right? The people outcomes in this area. Business outcomes, as I said, if your program is structured around the organizational objectives, then your measurement becomes easier, because alongside your plan of records, for example, you have strategically put a learning outcome, which is how does your workforce transformation looks like, where do you stand today, and where you would like to look at your workforce 1 year down the line. So how does your skills stack up? Another way to measure business outcomes will be how does productivity in your delivery teams are improving, how many internal innovations are coming, right? Innovations coming from within the delivery teams. How is your innovations which are getting implemented are getting adapted? So you want to continuously digitize today, and then your workforce should be quickly able to adapt to it, and then quickly bring that as part of mainstream. So these are some of the business outcomes. In terms of people outcomes, one of the good measures used to be about a couple of years back to look at external iterations which you have, right? Learning is a big motivation. Career security and opportunities within an organization is very important for somebody to work for many years in an organization, right? So continuous growth is important. I come from a company where you will find people average tenure more than 10 years, which is very unique. So Hewlett Packard and now Hewlett Packard Enterprise, It's a very uniqueness of the organization is that you will see people with uh, long careers in the company. However, in last couple of years, things have changed. Attrition is now influenced by a lot of external factors which are not in control of any organization. We all know the big talent war out going on. In this time, we have devised a new measure for people to look at internal talent mobility, and especially top talent mobility is a very important measure to look at success of your internal L&D investments, which means are you giving enough skills where people are able to find opportunities. Now that requires a lot of work, not just training. It requires a lot of succession planning and career path planning. However, internal talent mobility, if your organization has about 25 to 30% internal talent mobility with iteration rates of less than 15 or 20% range, I think you are doing good investments. Thank you.
Well, that's a great answer, Saket, and Deepesh, you would like to add something on this?
Sure. So, from PWC's perspective, I think we are focusing on this challenge both from a macro perspective and micro perspective. At a macro level, we have committed to invest almost $3 billion in 2019-20 to tackle the challenge of upskilling. And at a micro level, we tackle it at a different competency level. For example, in analytics, we focus on what we call as 4Cs. So this is basically content, curiosity, collaboration, and communication. And for each of these elements, we focus on different, both internal, external, or self-paced learnings. And within this, I would specifically like to mention a program which we did with upGrad, which was like a transformational program for us. Because till now we have been focusing on onboarding training internally, but this is somewhere where we partnered with upGrad and we brought in the whole training curriculum ahead, even before they join us. So we were training the whole batch, and this saved us a lot of time and energy, and at the same time generated like an additional revenue of 300K for us every year, $300K for us every year, because we were able to staff them right on day one. So yeah, that was an important transformation program, and where outcomes we could measure right away. And other aspects, I think it's important to stress the softer aspects of all of this, like communication, curiosity. All of this is very, very critical, and a lot of that we train through the on the job coaching and mentoring. So that's from PWC.
Great, and Tarun, I think you would have, I think a great sort of a story to talk about, right? Tiger has been growing phenomenally, I think both in terms of numbers, in terms of employees as well. So what's your experience on it?
So I think it's been a tremendous journey, right, for us. We're an 11-year-old company, right? Right now, proud of the fact that we are one of the fastest growing companies in the AI/ML services space. Last 10 years, we've almost our team size is almost 10x of what we were 3 years back, right? So it's been a tremendous scale that we have seen, and with that scale, the other trend that has happened with us, right, is that while we have scaled both globally, in India, US, and other areas, our teams have grown. Our offerings and capabilities have also diversified significantly in last 3 to 4 years, and that's a market trend, right? There's nothing unique, right? We know that clients are looking for end-to-end solutions now. They're not just looking for a AI model or a BI dashboard, right? They're looking for end-to-end business solutions, which cover right from upstream data engineering to your core, which we started out as a company, right? Our core is we wanted to be at the heart of AI, right? We wanted to solve most complex problems out there. And then downstream, right? How do you consume analytics output? Can you build an application for a client to consume, right? So all of that has bring about, opportunities for us to look at upskilling in a very different way, right? I'll talk about scale, right? So with scale, we as a bootstrap company, right, we've always, done a lot in-house, right? But as we scaled, right, we had to look for partners, right? Wherever it made sense, right? And I think, one of the programs we did with upGrad as well, wherein our, campus batch of almost 100 people, right, were made to go through a springboard program, because what we realized is that people who come from, colleges and campuses with the fresh talent, they need to be enabled, right, to be ready for, day one on the job, they need a certain very curated sort of a training program which kind of enables them for day one, right? So that they can hit the ground running. So that's where I think that program has helped us to kind of upskill, and we're seeing the impact right through. You just closed it, as you know, but we're seeing the impact on the ground in terms of the pre-skill assessment and the post-skill assessment part of it. The other thing that I want to talk about when you talk about business outcomes, right, linked to upskilling, right? Culturally as an organization, right, we are not somebody, who will track learning hours for people. It's very, very, there is a culture of ownership, accountability with everyone. Everyone has space to work at their own pace. There is no monitoring that happens in the firm. So that way the culture is very, very democratic, right? People are, what we believe in is that how can we enable them with the right ecosystem of learning and development, right? So that's where I think some of the initiatives around, where we see value, right? There are multiple facets of business value. Talking about client value, right? NPS scores, right? Our scores have always been 9+, because clients are always looking for, and they've called out, right, our ability to bring the best talent at the best speed, and to solve the complex problems. Other facet that we look at when we talk about business sustenance and business growth is our attrition rates. I think we talk about attrition. Again, proud to say we are probably one of the companies which has got the lowest attrition rate in the industry, close to 10%. And one of the drivers we were actually understanding why is it that we have such a lower attrition rate as a company, right? So when we look at one of the key drivers is that because there is a culture of listening to people, right? Upskilling is not a one-time activity. It's a continuous process in the organization. Measuring team health, our teams learning on projects, right? So upskilling doesn't stop at trading, right? So our teams learning on the project and giving them opportunity to move projects, change across the organization. I think that has helped us in the journey so far.
So great variety of answers. I think, Saket, you spoke about a little bit of internal factors, and you mentioned about a totally new concept about internal job mobility. I think that's a great takeaway from this question, right? And Tarun, you spoke a little bit about basically making it a little bit more dependent on the learners to really take their initiative, right? I think and as we go along and we realize that the scale at which you folks are today, right? I think the next question that logically comes is how do you really make it more agile, right? I think one of the things we spoke about in our launch yesterday of the Q-Print report, we talk about learning strategy that is really agile, that is really scalable, right? How do you really focus on that, and how do you really focus on what's in it for the employee's perspective? Maybe Deepesh or Tarun or Saket, whoever wants to take a quick stab at it.
So I'll just share my 2 cents, right? It's just something interesting that we are doing at Tiger. So I think one of the things that we realize is that learning needs to be decentralized, right? There shouldn't be just one team or set up in the company or business unit that is responsible for learning. So we've sort of decentralized where all the business teams are coming up with new ways of sort of ideas around how they want to train for that particular project or the problem that they're solving. What we have enabled, and Venkat is here, right, who's our who's been leading all of these lot of initiatives for us at Tiger. What we've done is that we have come up with a lot of curated content. The problem we realize is that with the technology scaling up, when I started my career 14 years back, we used to work with almost 3 to 4 technologies around. Right now, if I have to put a tech stack out there, it's 100+, right? More than that. And as we're speaking, there are innovations happening out there, right? How do you take away the noise from the learner's agenda, right? How do you align the curated content to the role that the person is playing? And as you've seen, right, the roles have evolved. Earlier, there used to be a statistical analyst, a programmer, and a modeler when I started out, right? Now there is a data scientist, and this is also changing. Now we're talking about full stack data scientists, right? So as the roles in the industry is evolving, you have to stay nimble and make sure that there is a very targeted content which is created, and that's where the teams focus on. And there is a strong collaboration between the business and the learning teams to make sure that we get that very curated content to people so that they can focus.
Great. Saket, any specific things that you would like to talk in the HP stand?
Yeah. See, one of the big problems today is, with the big push in the open source area, right? We discover that there are new technologies coming every day, right? You will hardly get a project which is repeatable, right? So very difficult to get best fit or person who fits all the bill around any assignment or project, right? So one of the important aspect is you have to focus on the foundational skills, and two very important foundational skills we focus on is the right mindset and problem solving skills, right? If you have these two foundations built very strong in your organization, and you want to acquire a new skill, or for client A you're working on certain analytics stack, on client B you want to take a deviation of 30%, you can almost assume that you in your organization you will not have that skill. But then if you have those two skills, which is of course right mindset, which means growth mindset, person can quickly learn and adapt and has problem solving skills, then that will drive that agility. And we measure ourselves on fulfillment of client requests. So as I said, we have that confidence that if we are meeting the stack for 60 to 70%, we will bridge that gap very quickly to come to a place where we are comfortably able to deliver. Right.
So great. I think we have a very diverse perspective on the way the agility and the scalability aspects of it, right? If you want to sort of take over from the
Yeah, I want to change the conversation a little bit, right? We spoke about employees and upskilling employees, right? So let's bring the focus onto you guys as leaders, right? Now the organizations that shaped you, right, and the organization that you are trying to shape are two very different animals, right? The kind of work that we are doing now, right? The skills required to do that work, and also the generation that we are trying to lead is very, very different, right? So maybe not every time you can look up to your leaders and your mentors and try to role model them, right? Because they lived in a very different world than what you guys are living in. So my question is that what are some of the changes that you have personally made to keep yourselves up to date and also to be good leaders and support your teams? Who wants to go first? You can volunteer.
Okay, I can take this probably. So uh, I think, as you all know, this is a big change even for leadership. It's important to, you know, understand, and I mean, for me personally, I've taken this simple mantra, like never give up on any learning opportunity, be it like a small article shared by any team member, or an opportunity like this where everybody is here to learn and network with each other. I think the second important thing is we all need to learn from innovation that is happening in and around us. So bringing in that outside in perspective is very, very critical. To give you an example, a company called Workday in 2021, they initiated this great new HR strategy through their portal called Career Hub, where essentially the idea was that employees can work on specific skill sets by finding opportunities in other teams and departments, and learn on the job. So and they did some amazing work through that initiative. So I think that's important to learn from the innovation, innovation happening in the industry. One other piece is like we as leaders should never hesitate in learning from the people who are working with us. We should be open to the mindset that they are bringing in, and that is I think, in my sense, that's the best opportunity to learn and grow yourself as leaders.
Absolutely. Be a learner yourself first, right? Who wants to go next?
Yeah, so I think I think you covered great points, right? I think so as the challenges, the biggest challenge that we face as leaders is the time, right, that you have in a day, and then you have so many calls and responsibilities happening. Your calendar is always blocked, right? So how do we go about it, right? So I think at times I've felt that you'll be doing injustice to your teams if you don't upskill or upgrade yourself, because they would be looking up to you to guide them. So I think it's okay to be selfish, block your calendar for a focused time, and then try to upgrade yourself, right? But it's tougher than it's easy than easier said than done, right? The other thing that I think Deepesh called out is that, which works very well, is that just you don't have to like do a course or a something, right, to actually upgrade yourself. You have so many teams working for you, right? Can you spend just quality time listening to them and what they have done and why they have done it, right? Trust me, the greatest solutions have come in Tiger from the junior most people in the organization, right? So that I think that culture needs to be there where a leader should not be afraid to walk up to an analyst and sit with the analyst and understand, okay, what he or she is doing, right? I think that to me is really helpful, right? And then I think we need to focus on knowledge management as well as an organization, right? There's a lot of content out there. A lot of, as services organization, we build a lot of case studies, right? We build a lot of content material for different clients and projects. How do you make sure that all of that is available in a very accessible manner, in an organized manner, so that you don't have to call somebody to get that content in, right? It is accessible to you, and that truly, in our case, right, has enabled people and teams, especially at senior level.
Thank you so much, Tarun.
Do you
Saket,
have time?
anything
Okay.
to add? We
So,
do have time, yes.
okay. Yeah. So, see, one pros I would say to work in the area of capability development for an organization is that you you are almost linked to everything which is happening in the organization and connected to everything, every department, every project. So that is a very big advantage in my line of work, right? And you're connected to almost entire organization, right from a campus hire to big executives. They all need you. So that is a big learning opportunity, right? And also you are connected to a lot of folks in the industry. So you get a lot of information. You meet good people, and that's kind of a big boon in this sort of work. Another thing is, what I see in terms of leaders and everything around the industry. Now, when it comes to skill development, there's a lot of talk the talk which happens. Every company in the world cannot deny that they are focused on skill development, right? Almost, it's given. However, it is very important that you walk the talk. So leaders have to be the front runner in that, right? Also, some advice for how to get to that position is really to focus when you are starting your journey, is really to focus to build a solid foundation, have some depth in careers. And also, if you're driving careers for people, then allow them time and space to build that depth and not just scratch the surface, right? Extremely important. You will see a lot of mid-career crisis where people have been extremely fast and agile in the initial part of the career growth and not focusing on building a solid foundation, and that's where the stagnation comes. Uh, Another important is to allow employees time to build skills, right? We are almost in a world where everything is agile and agile development is changing a lot of things. There's a lot of cognitive overload we are causing to our employees. A techie in a year can acquire only 2 to 3 skills and build depth, right? Beyond that, there is a tendency around that we want to do everything in the world possible, and you push your employees, and really they lose their way, right? So it is important to be balanced, I would say, and allow that space, and that will then eventually accumulate, and where there will be foundations, solid foundations, which will then allow you to accelerate much faster at later stage, right? So these are some of the things I have followed and I pass on to my organization as some standard practices, which does help us.
So great. I think we had a fantastic viewpoints from all three of you, and we thank you, Tarun, Deepesh, and Saket. I think we had a very interesting start where we spoke about hypothesis, and you brought a different twist to it. Saket, you spoke about how do you really look at aligning to business, right? I think the learning goals should be aligned to business for it to be really, and for the really the alternate hypothesis to be valid. Tarun, you spoke about factor making learning democratic. I mean, you really spoke about how to have learning really come from within the ranks itself. And Deepesh, you spoke about interesting aspects about the macro and the micro points in terms of the investment PwC is making. And finally, we had a little perspective individually from each one of you on what really we need to do as leaders to really ensure that learning is imbibed, and we have different perspectives from all of you. So thank you very much.